So today we're installing new head gaskets on this GL1100 Honda Goldwing engine. Now this can be done with the engine in the bike or outside the bike. I happen to be doing it with the engine out of the bike. Now this is a more involved wrenching project. It requires, once you've got the timing belts back on, that you time the engine and adjust the valves. I've got separate videos for both of those processes, which I will include in the corner of the video up here, as well in the description down here. So check those out if you want to know more about those specific procedures and how to do that. Otherwise, enjoy this video. All right, so I'm going to change the head gaskets on this GL1100 engine from a Honda Goldwing. The first step in doing that is to remove this front cover on the engine. Behind this cover are the timing belts. We have to take off the timing belts, and then we can take off the valve covers here on the head and then remove the head. These bolts up here are 12 millimeter. All right, in order to get the timing belts off, I have to loosen the belt tensioners, which are these guys right here. There's a bolt there and a bolt over here. Loosen both of those, and this should be able to push that down, slide it down, and the belt should be able to come off. All right, now we're taking the valve cover off. These are 10 millimeter bolts right here. Take those off, and that will release our valve cover. And there's that, and you can see why we're doing this, because look at all that foamy oil in there. That means there's water in our engine. So that guy's off. Now we need to take off the head itself. Actually, before we do that, we need to disconnect the water pipe on the top here. All right, now onto the bolt heads. There's 6 bolt heads.
One there, one in the middle, one on each side of the bottom as well.
And these guys are 14 millimeter. And then you should also, on the front, you should have a bolt right there as well that holds that goes into the head. I don't for some reason. All right, let's get to it here. There's another bolt on the very bottom here for the water passage that goes down the bottom. There's a bolt right here. You've got to remove that guy. With the bolts out, now it's just a matter of breaking this head loose. So I'm going to try tapping it with this rubber mallet. All right, so there is our engine, little cylinder walls, our pistons here. There's a little oil passage guy here that comes out, and there's a couple O-rings on there. I need to replace those O-rings. There's a guide here, and there's another guide over there. I need to make sure I've got both of those guides. When I put the head back on, I need to clean up all this gasket material on here, make sure everything is nice and clean, and then we can put on a new gasket and a new head. I'm using different heads. I've got my heads cleaned up as best I can get them. I'm hoping this is adequate to prevent any leaks in the future. So I gotta get my new head. My new gaskets are right here. Look at these suckers. Here we are. Here we are. Go on just like that. It specifically says not to use any other sealant on here, just the gasket. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna make sure I got this guy. Go ahead, throw my gasket on here. Alrighty, let's do it. I got myself some motor oil. I'm gonna use that to lube up the bolts here. I've labeled them as they came out so I can put them back in exactly the same spot. Stick this guy up here. Get them on their little alignment tab things. Get this bolt in here. Get that started at least. So it will stay on there by itself. Lubed up pretty.
Just want to
to get them on there at the moment. Go ahead and get them all in there, and we'll worry about tightening and aligning them. Now it comes time to torque these bolts down. There's a sequence to this torquing. You start with this guy. This is number 1, then here number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. So you torque it like that. You torque this one down first to 25 foot-pounds. All right, so there's two different methodologies in the climber's manual. The old methodology and the new methodology according to the manual. The old one is to torque it first. You torque 25 foot-pounds, 25 foot-pounds, 25, 25, 25, 25. You torque them all down to 25 foot-pounds first, and then you torque them down to 40 foot-pounds. That's the old methodology. The new methodology is just torque them down to 40 foot-pounds. I'm not quite sure what the difference there is. To me, the first one makes more sense because it's a stepped torque, and which is what I've done before on other boxer type engines, and that seems to work really well. So I'm going to go with that methodology and torque it down in a series. I'm going to set my torque wrench here to 25 foot-pounds, and we'll bust a move here. All right, that's 25 there, 25 there, 25 there, 25 there, 25 there, 25 there. All right, now we switch it to 40. Go through it again. So 40 here. That's 40. 40, 40, huh. 40. So that should be done. Should all be at 40 now. 40. All right, we're good. And then don't forget your little bolt that's on the bottom that goes on the oil passage down here. That guy gets torqued to 7 foot-pounds. Now I gotta take the camshaft off the other head and put it on this one. All right, so while I'm putting new head gaskets on the engine, I'm also switching out the heads to the heads that I had reworked and refinished for a decent amount of dough. So I'm gonna use those while we're at it. And one of the things involved is there is this camshaft oil seal that's right on the side here, right between the cam gear and the head. There is a seal right there, which is popped out at the moment. You can see that shiny bit. That's the seal. And so I need to replace that. I've got some new ones. I'm gonna take the rocker assembly off and then get this cam back out. I gotta get the cam gear off in order to get that seal on there. So I'm gonna put this thing in the vise and see if I can undo the cam gear from the cam, get the new seal on there, and then put this cam gear back on. All right, so I've got my cam wrapped in a nice little towel here to keep it warm. Now to keep it safe from marring on by the vise. And then I've got on here the 12 millimeter bolt on the top here, and I've got a little breaker bar. I'm gonna go on here. Let's see if we can turn this thing. Get this nut off. Oh yeah. And then so there's this nut on here, and there's also a washer on there. Nice thick washer. So those guys come off, and then our cam gear, here's our cam gear, and there's a little square thing there. It's got a little key in it. So there's a little piece of square metal that is probably going to want to fall out and get lost. So we got to be careful when we're taking this gear off. Keep track of that thing, and then we're going to need to make sure we put that back in when we put the gear back on here. So pull it up, and then you can see the little guide thing right here, and that's in there. So I'm going to leave it in there, but this is what we came for. This little oil seal, take that guy off. And then new oil seal. Got this guy. Put that one on there. Make sure it looks like the old one. It does. Looks just like it, which is what we want. So take this guy out. Voila. Take this guy, put him on like so. Cam gear back on. Line it up. Line up the little groove here with our key on the side, and slap that down all the way. Get our washer, put that back on, our bolt, and then we got to torque this guy down. Look up, see what the torque specs are for that. All right, so 18 to 21 foot-pounds is what the manual says. There we are. All right, I'm getting a wee bit of oil here. Yes, a wee bit to use as like assembly lube. Wipe this guy down real quick. Clean it up, make it a little less dirty. Make it more respectable. But only slightly. I don't want to put too much effort into it. And so I'm going to put some lube on these cam gears. Or these cam lobes. I call them gears. They're lobes. Putting lube on. I'm oiling up the rockers themselves where they come in contact with the camshaft lobes. Seats here for the camshaft. So, and then I know that it goes this way because on the bottom you see you got these little alignment tabs here, and then on this guy these are also the bigger holes are down on right here. Those are our big holes right there. See that one's bigger, that one's bigger. So these go into the alignment tabs there, and so it should go exactly like that. And according to the manual, this is kind of how you do it. You put that oil seal on the cam first, and then you stick it in here and put this all together. You don't put it on here and then put the seal on for whatever reason. All right, let's do this. I've got everything cleaned up. All right, so come reassembly time, I can't forget to have my little back plate here, as well as the little gasket for this guy that goes on the back side of this, like so, and then all this stuff goes bleep on here. Approximately. I'm assembling this with the cam gear on the cam. You could do it the opposite way once the cam is already back in the head, and that might be easier than put the cam gear on afterwards and torque that down, and that might be a lot neater actually. All this into my little head here. Get my main journal thing lined up right here in the middle. Take my rocker assembly. All right, I can throw some of these bolts on here to get everything held in place. All right, all my rocker arms seem to be where they're supposed to be. This thing is in here the way it's supposed to be. This guy, this little backer plate guy here. Go ahead and get this set up. I have a couple bolts right here. All right, so these little bolts I've got, they go in, and I'm going to put them right through these guys here. I'm going to rotate this around as necessary, line this up, and screw them in this way. All right, so the two bolts that we just put in here that hold on this backing plate right here, those get torqued down to 6 to 9 foot-pounds. All right, and then the bolts that hold on this rocker assembly, these 6 bolts right here, these are all supposed to be torqued down to 18 to 21 foot-pounds. right, now we've got the fuel pump. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back on. As far as I can tell, this is the only thing resembling a gasket, is this sort of plastic piece here that goes on between here. So we'll go ahead and put this guy on. Alright, now I'm gonna move over and get the head on the other side of the engine now. Take this valve cover off. Alright, I'm gonna try taking this guy off actually first. Let's try it that way on this side, huh? Alright, I'm going to bring out the big gun. Try and get this off of here. And like magic, it's right off. Alright, so that's off. Pull this guy off. And then we can get to these bolts. See these guys? Yeah, they're a pain in the butt to get to otherwise. So now it's nice and slick. You get in here, no problem. And paint this guy up, get that cleaned up real quick. Alright, so we've got the gear off the camshaft and everything, the back plate off the camshaft. And now we're going to go ahead and this rocker assembly should come off real easy now that we have removed those two screws right there. So part of this job is this guy right here. And this comes out. It has two rubber grommets on there, which you'll see better once I clean it up. Alright, so I've got one of these like do-it-all kits or whatever that you buy off the internet for cheap. And it comes with these two little rubber O-rings right here. And they go on that guy. Alright, so with the O-rings installed, it looks about like that, where there is a little divot up near the top there, and the little O-ring goes in that one, and the big O-ring just goes on the bottom fatter part there, and there's no divot on there, it just sort of rolls around. This end over here is the one that goes into the case, and this is the part that sticks out. So it goes in the case, and then this part, and then the O-ring will just go flat against the case. So it goes right here in the lower hole. You just do this, the narrow end goes in first, jam it in there basically. That's in, and then you got to make sure that other O-ring is over the top like so. And I've got our new head gasket right here, so you can see how the O-ring fits neatly inside the gasket there. Alright, now we go ahead and put our new head on here. These get torqued down to 6 to 9 foot-pounds. Alright, then I'm going to put my cam gear back on here. And then this gets torqued down to 20 foot-pounds. I might have to wait until everything is on the engine until I've got the belts on here in order to torque this down fully. I just cannot forget to do it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get my belt on here and get this guy torqued down, and then we'll call it a night. Alright, back in the shop, next day, engine is timed. If you want to know how to time an engine, I have a whole other video on it, which I'll put up here in this corner, a link to that video. So check that out if you're interested in timing this same engine, this GL1100. Now that we've got that done though, I'm going to go ahead and put the timing belt covers back on the front of the engine. And we're going to check our valve clearances. And if you want a video on valve clearancing, it's up here. And then we'll put our valve covers back on and go over this engine once more. Make sure we haven't forgotten anything. And then we're going to be putting it back in the bike today. Phase one of the hard part is done. We've got all of our covers back on. Cooling system tube is in place once again, and I think we're ready. I've checked, all our bolts are accounted for. I don't have anything left over, and that's always a good sign. So we're gonna take this engine, wrap it up in our lifting strap, hook it up to our hoist here, hoist that thing up, and then put it back on the jack over here, and then roll it back into the bike frame.